Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me for today's webinar. My name is Amber Hines, and I'm the owner of Ashbur. We specialize in Medicaid compliant annuities and work with attorneys and financial advisors from across the country. We are licensed to sell annuities in all states across the country. I'm also a licensed to sell securities as well, and licensed through FINRA with my Securities 65 license. I created Ashbur back in 2019 to help attorneys and advisors with crisis Medicaid planning primarily. So generally, when a client is already experiencing a long-term care need, whether in a nursing home, at home, or assisted living, that's really where Ashbur comes in to help clients that are already in crisis mode and to protect as many assets as possible with a Medicaid compliant annuity. I'm super excited to have Don Quante with us today. He is going to be addressing the issues that arise when we have a pre-planning client that is not necessarily already in crisis mode. And so Don has over 40 years of experience as a financial advisor. I personally have known Don now for over 10 years, and he is an author of a best-selling Amazon book, Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home, and also has a radio show and has trained thousands of advisors now. So super excited to have Don with us today. If you do have questions during today's presentation, feel free to type those into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard, and you can also find a copy of the handouts from today's session in the GoToWebinar dashboard as well. And without further ado, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Don.
All right, Amber, thank you for such a wonderful and kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here. What Amber didn't say was the reason why the book Don't Go Broke in a Nursing Home became an Amazon bestseller is we actually co-authored that book in all 50 states and particularly brought in the top elder law firms in each of those states to become the co-author of the book as they wrote about the Medicaid. So it was phenomenal. I love the opportunity to be in front of your group, your industry, and elder and estate planning attorneys in general. So my goal today in the next roughly 30 minutes or so is to share with you how you can actually help your clients create tax-free long-term care from their IRA. I'm going to help you learn a little bit about how to position new guaranteed issue long-term care products. And this is post-COVID. We believe it or not, we actually have a way now where we can insure somebody who already is receiving care in a nursing home with dementia. There could be some situations where you come across the client and they're not going to be a Medicaid client for a variety of reasons, but they still want your expertise. And so hopefully I'm going to share with you some interesting insight on that. I'm going to share with you how to get more pre-planning cases by using a simple survey. It's something that, since you are on this call with Ashbur and likely already know Amber and are doing business with her, you're going to get access to free of charge because, again, you're with Ashbur on this. And then I'm going to throw in a couple of bonuses. We're going to talk about the impact that COVID has had on how people feel about long-term care. As Amber mentioned, you're going to get the slide deck if you just simply request it from her. And it's going to be beneficial because there's a survey or study, excuse me, that was done about wealthy families and why they're now buying long-term care. Believe it or not, it's not what you might think. I'm going to share with you an easy way to identify those high net worth clients in your sphere of influence. And then I'm going to finish with probably the most important part, which is understanding the two sections of the Internal Revenue Code that deals with long-term care, why it matters, and what the difference between the two of them are. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Again, if you have questions, just put them in the chat. At the end, Amber's got me on a tight leash. She said, Don, we got to make sure we got time for Q&A, so we're going to do that. Now, for most of you, if you're like me, you maybe watch the 5 p.m. or the 6 p.m. news, and there was not a night that went by that you didn't see one of these horrific images. And it's heartbreaking. You look at this couple, and maybe they've been married 40 or 50 years, and you know they cannot even embrace skin to skin because of what was called the lockdown, right? Most people don't know this, but the majority of the people that died from COVID, I mean, a very, very large percentage of them happened in assisted living, memory care, and nursing home. It's the reason why when people are asked this one question, if you got sick and needed care, 88% of them say they want to stay at home. They want to be at home. So as law firms go, if you begin to think about repositioning and your marketing message is more about trying to keep them at home, but still doing all of the things that you do as it pertains to Medicaid and VA planning and so forth, I think that will serve you well. Now, I mentioned that the wealthy people are interested in long-term care, but here's what they said. So these are people that have $1 million or more, making a couple $100,000 of income. 47% of them said they worried about being a burden to their loved one in old age. So, you know, from a marketing message standpoint, and that's where I spend the majority of my time helping firms from a marketing standpoint. The marketing message is, look, we're going to help you not become a burden to your children. We're going to do it in a way where you'll be able to rely on family members, because look, the study says 71% of them wanted to do that. So you don't have to be a burden to your children. There is a way you can rely on them and have them help you, but wouldn't it be nice if there was a tax-free way to actually pay them? And believe it or not, with your caregiver agreements and the benefits of tax-free money from a long-term care contract under the Pension Protection Act, you'll be able to accomplish that. You see, I think, and I shared this with Amber over the last 10 years, the trusted advisor that's in the best position to help a client with long-term care is not a long-term care insurance agent. It's not a financial planner like Amber or myself, but it's all of you that are on this call. You see, you hold the keys to the kingdom because the legal structure has to be right. The ability to draft proper caregiver agreements and own certain products that we're going to discuss inside of trust that only you all can draft is unbelievable. It's really, really important. So let's go ahead and dive in. 9,700 baby boomers have been turning 65 each and every day. All right, we're going to turn the page because we're so tired, sick and tired of hearing that statistic, right? But how about this one? January 1st of this coming year, less than 6 months from now, the very first baby boomer turns 80. And this is going to be a watershed event. For those law firms that are positioned properly, the next 10 years will be the best. I submit that your firm will help more clients and generate more revenue in the next 10 years than you have in the previous 20 or 30, just because the demographics are on our side. Now, this group also brings to us another significant problem. And for law firms, this is a double-edged sword. You see, this group, the baby boomers, are responsible for owning over half of the $34+ trillion of qualified money. So if you're in states other than Texas and Kentucky, that presents potentially a problem. My goal, and what I've done for the last 42 years, is help trusted advisors, i.e. in this case, elder law attorneys, through firms like Ashburr, take a basket of lemons, which is the client has all kinds of IRA money, and let's make lemonade out of it. You see, just because there might be a different approach than a Medicaid plan or VA doesn't mean that they're not still going to turn to you. So we're going to talk a bit about that as we go through this, but it's worth noting that every 66 seconds, somebody is diagnosed with Alzheimer's in this country. And for those who are certified dementia practitioners on this call, you would also know, and the rest of us should know, that that's just one of 70 different types of dementia, right? You got front temporal lobe dementia, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, alcohol-related dementia, and the list goes on and on. And each of them creates their own set of problems for the family. But the one problem that exists is if they don't have their legal affairs in order and a financial plan in place to cover the care costs, they got a real real issue on their hands, right? So that again is where you all are going to come in. Now, the US Census says there's 58 million people over the age of 65 in our country. But by 2030, that number is going to increase to 71 million. It's going to become the biggest portion of, or one of the biggest portions of our population. And approximately 10% of them have at least $1 million. So when you start thinking in these terms, the ability to peel off a piece of their cash, put it into an irrevocable trust that we're going to call the caregiver's trust, and pay for care with tax-free dollars could have some value to a large proportion of the people that are coming through your offices. Now, we know, you heard all kinds of statistics. I can tell you it's about half the people that turn 65 are going to need some type of care. We're working on a case right now where the family has their husband is in the 11th year of Parkinson's. There's 5 stages to it. He's in the 5th stage. They've spent almost $700,000 in care costs, and unfortunately, he is in a state where the IRA is problematic, and he has a little over $2 million. So we'll talk a little bit about how we solve that problem. But we know one thing: cost of care is going up, right? 100,000, not, I mean, in some parts of the country, these numbers are even low. I'm based here in St. Louis, Missouri, and these numbers are real for here, and they're just going to continue to get more expensive. Now, there is a ton of confusion about long-term care, and let me tell you the reason why. The majority, set aside people like Amber, who is like, you know, she's top tier, 0.1% smartest out there when it comes to financial services and how they integrate with what you do. The majority of my friends that are in the financial service industry don't get it. They just don't get it. So it has got to be you all that bring this to the clients and serve them. Because you see, the general public, when asked, and this is a Boston College study, hey, when you get sick, who's going to pay for the care? They thought that over 51% of the money was going to come from the government. They thought it was Medicaid, but they really were confused because they cited 45% of them said the money was coming from Medicare. Well, we all know on this call that Medicare is designed to pick up care costs for long-term care only under very strict circumstances and only for a maximum of 100 days, right? So I'd call that short-term, not long-term. We know that the majority of the money's going to come out of it's going to come out of their cash. So kind of with that in mind, LIMRA then took it a little bit further, and they did a study, and they asked 100 people, high net worth individuals, what do you know about long-term care? How you cover it? Oh, we got that covered. 29% of them, so that meant 71% said they don't have protection. That by itself is alarming. But the other 29%, when they dug a little bit deeper, found that it really wasn't true because they thought they had coverage through their work or some other program. And then when they dug deep, they found that really only 3.1% of those people had protection in place for long-term care. So when you dig a little bit deeper, LIMRA says, well, that's not surprising because there's only 7.7 million long-term care contracts in force in the United States. So think about it, almost 300 million people and only 7 million policies. It's the reason, again, why I'm so adamant that families who get with a competent elder law attorney who understands what we're covering today is going to be just fine. Their families are going to be all right. Now, you have another dynamic, and this statistic actually needs to be updated because just a week ago, if you were following this, the newest caregiver study from 2024 came out, and this is a 2023 study. 2023, there were 53 million unpaid caregivers. That's ballooned to a little over 63 million unpaid family caregivers that provided, get this, 36 billion hours of care at a cost of 600 billion. So as I sit here today, I kind of envision a world in the future where you all become the purveyors of caregiver agreements. Now, I know that you do it and you're like, Don, we can fall over backwards and do those things, but it becomes a much bigger piece of the pie as you put these plans together, because we're going to show you at the end how to get the tax-free money and leveraged, even when people are receiving care, to pay family caregivers. So can you imagine being able to say to a family caregiver, hey, look, you know what? You're not making contributions to a 401k because you're not working now. You're caring for your mom. What if we could pay you enough extra money from an insurance company's tax-free benefits to cover that? That's the direction we need to go. Now, why is there a caregiver shortage? Right now, there will not be enough caregivers. There just won't be. It will be family caregiving in the future. Now, this is from the Census Bureau, I think, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this is real recent. And you would think with all the AI that's going on out there, I mean, I used ChatGPT last night. It was fabulous, right? Again, it's amazing what those tools can do, that we would need software engineers and programmers, and that the number of them that we would need would be more than 304,000. But do you know that home health care, personal care aides is the #1 with most projected growth? I can tell you this, let's say you were awarded the Amada franchise in Toledo. Your biggest problem is not going to be getting customers. Their biggest problem is finding the caregivers, right? So you're going to begin to see things like are already happening, where there's partnerships between big home care agencies like Amada and the insurance company One America, where they're matching a benefit inside their contract that will teach the family how to provide some of the care and actually get paid from the insurance contract. That's called cash benefit or indemnity. That will be the future of our industry. Now, again, this is a double-edged sword, because many times families don't call on you all, the elder law attorneys, until their back's to the wall, right? They just had that heart attack, and by gosh, the wife's saying, you got to get in there and see the attorney now. It's not unusual for the caregivers to be in this baby boomer generation. 60% of them, by the way, that are caregivers taking care of the 86, 87-year-old mother or father, they themselves have chronic health problems, things like osteoporosis, obesity, diabetes, and it's problematic for most of the carriers. One of the things you'll get by working with Amber and her team at Ashburn is they understand, and with us behind the scenes backing them up, they understand how to underwrite those cases. And we can ensure, like we did last week, somebody who's got Parkinson's, stage 1 Parkinson's, they're coming to the elder law attorney, right? And when you hit that brick wall and you're not sure what to do, you need to call Amber, because we're going to share with you some really cool things that you can do. So the baby boomers have got issues. The perfect storm begins January 1st of 2026. So let's get ahead of it, get some of the training in, and go from there. So I threw a lot out, and you might say, all right, Don, what does this all mean? It's real simple. The opportunity has never been brighter for law firms that are positioned right. And so if you said, what's Don, what is your, God-given ability? It is the ability to see around the corners with these trends that are happening. And we are in the process of building some things that will help you be positioned properly as the only logical choice in your marketplace for these kinds of cases. Here's the thing though, you got to know a couple of things, okay? You got to know what the Pension Protection Act is. And some of you may already understand that, some of you maybe don't. But for sure, I'm going to go through it at the way that we all learn best for new concepts. And that's, I'm going to keep it real simple, the KISS philosophy. And I'm going to share with you what the Pension Protection Act is, but more important, when done right, what does it mean, and how does it end up on steroids when you own it properly inside of an irrevocable trust? The second thing is you got to know the difference between Internal Revenue Code 7702B and 101G. It's critical. It really matters. So let's start. These are two very different approaches. And I suspect that most of you have had a fair number of financial advisors refer customers to you. And sometimes they don't know what they don't know. So it's on you to make sure that you're the gatekeeper and make sure that the client gets the right kind of coverage in place. So think of it this way. Under 101G, life insurance policy accelerates the benefits for chronic illness. Under 7702B, life insurance has a long-term care rider. It's oftentimes called asset-based long-term care, right? You'll hear that term a lot. And and so those are the two types of coverage, or two types of approaches, excuse me. 101G, just remember, Don put a big fat red no. You don't want 101G. Okay, I'm going to share with you why. You want, and you want the clients to want, 7702B. So let's dive in. Under 101G, the IRS Internal Revenue Code says any amount that's received under this insurance product is considered a benefit by reason of the death of the insured. So when you're chronically ill, it's treated as a death benefit, just paid in advance. The issue is they dramatically discount it. So 101G will always be something added to a life insurance contract. And you'll hear advisors say things like, oh yeah, it's a free rider. There's no such thing as a free lunch when it comes to long-term care. As a matter of fact, there's even federal law that dictates under marketing that 101G contracts cannot use the term long-term care in their marketing or sales literature. So if somebody says something to you like, you know, we've got this extended care, this premier living benefits rider, anything that says words like this that don't say long-term care, don't walk, run. Make sure the clients don't buy these kinds of products, because all you're doing is setting them up for disappointment down the road. 7702B is going to be always more comprehensive coverage. 7702B says to qualify, it's real simple. You have to be unable to do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, the things we all take for granted: eating, dressing, bathing, continence, toileting, transferring. You got to have that, or you have to have a cognitive impairment that they believe will last 90 days or longer. Okay, so these policies under 7702B are where you want the clients to be. Now, the 101G riders are only going to pay benefits when the illness is likely to last the rest of the insured's life. That leaves it that those words, I know as attorneys you're going, boy, that's left open to wide interpretation, right? And that's the insurance companies taking advantage of people. So we don't want 101G. I think I've said that now, Amber, 14 times. We don't want 101G because in addition, they discount the death benefit. It's called actuarial discounting. And I'll give you an example. Let's say we set up 2 contracts. They both have a $300,000 death benefit. One has life insurance with the long-term care benefit rider. Remember, those words are important: long-term care benefit. 7702B says, hey, look, what we're going to do is pay 2% of the death benefit in the form of a monthly benefit. If you get sick, you need home care, assisted skilled care, you're unable to do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, or you're cognitively impaired and your doctor decides that's going to last longer than 90 days, we'll start sending a check for $6,000 a month, or as you see here, $72,000 a year. Watch what happens. Over 3 years, the client gets 72, another 72, another 72. However, over here, the 101G contract, because it's left to very, very wide interpretation, they look at the type of illness or ailment that the client has, and they apply an actuarially discounted factor to that. In this case, the client's going to get 24% of the death benefit, but it's discounted, and in this case by 50%. So you don't want to be involved in these transactions if the advisor is suggesting 101G. This is an opportunity, and I shared this with Amber, where you can educate advisors on what they don't know, because most of them are too busy trying to be all things to all people. So if you're working with advisors and you're getting referrals from them, you know, having some educational events like we're doing here today, even working with Amber on that, or even Amber and myself, we'd be happy to do to get that education out. Okay, I think we've beaten this one to death. 7702B is the only one that you want, and great places like Ashford, that's what they're going to share with you should you enlist them to help. Again, we talked about this, 2 of 6 activities of daily living, or you're requiring care because of cognitive impairment, like Alzheimer's or any of the other dementia. This money all comes out tax-free, again, because it's 7702B. If you request the slide deck, this will be a great piece to print out because it's a real simple cheat sheet. At the sake of saving time, I won't go through it, but it's a piece worth having. That's why I put it in here for Amber. All right, let's shift gears and let's talk about something that's really, really fun. The Pension Protection Act. So January 1st of 2011, Kathy Casely Kirchling turned 65. Again, she was the first baby boomer to turn 65 then. If she's still alive on January 1st of this coming year, she'll be the first 80-year-old, right? That's a baby boomer. So that was January 1st of 2011. 1 year before that, guess what Congress did? Congress said, we're going to let the last piece of the Pension Protection Act that was passed into law in 2006, and it did a bunch of things, right? But the last part, and I think it's the gem, and it's the one that most advisors overlook, and quite frankly, quite a few attorneys overlook, and that's the ability to access funds out of this type of an annuity 100% tax-free to pay for long-term care. This means that a client who has an existing non-qualified annuity could exchange it to an annuity that's a Pension Protection Act annuity, and then get all the money plus the gain plus the leverage out 100% tax-free. The opportunity is huge. Client could write a check. They could take a non-qualified annuity or cash value from a life insurance policy to fund one of these things. The only kind of money they cannot use is IRA. And we're going to come to that later because we've got a solution for IRA. It's just not the Pension Protection Act. If you would like the world's smallest white paper on the Pension Protection Act, one that you can have Amber co-brand or brand to your company, to your law firm, just go ahead and type in Pension Protection Act, and that'll let Amber know when she reviews this tape who it is that's interested in this information. But there are 267 million life insurance policies. I work very closely with law firms across the country, much like Amber does, until 10 years ago when my career path took a little bit different turn. And what I would find oftentimes is the law firms that I was working with would have me review life insurance policies. And how many times have you had a client say, hey, Mr. Attorney, Mrs. Attorney, can you review this? And you look at it and you're like, wait a second, it's a John Hancock insurance contract. It's a $100,000 death benefit. It's got $98,000 in cash value. Well, we all know that that's not the definition of leverage. It's not the definition of insurance. So you have the ability now to share with that client that they could transfer the life insurance policy under IRS 1035 exchange and get the money out tax-free. There's almost $5 trillion of this kind of stuff out there. So it's a matter of having a conversation with the client and having them retool a current asset that they already have. Repurpose is a better word. Repurpose an existing annuity or an existing life insurance policy that they already have to meet the needs they have when they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. And their biggest need is the long-term care one. Again, a great table to use. I won't bore you with it, but this is in the handout. So let's talk about a couple of questions that if you're not asking now, it kind of makes sense as an elder law attorney to do, and that is, you know, look, if you got really sick, and again, remember, this is for people who are the caregivers of the 80 or 90-year-olds. So let's pick up that second generation legal work in a smart way. If you got sick and needed care, where would you want it? Most of them are going to say at home, 88% of them. What asset would you liquidate first? I mean, the cost of care here in St. Louis is 10 grand a month for home care. What would you do? Well, I'd use that darn annuity. I probably should have never bought that thing. Well, let me ask you, if there was a better way to use some of that annuity to pay for long-term care, is that something we should take a look at? Remember, I said I was going to keep it simple. It is that simple. There's a law firm in Pennsylvania that began doing this, and they work. I believe they work with Amber as well. And they said their second-tier legal cases went through the roof because now they're picking up that second generation in the context of long-term care planning. They're doing all of their their base documents, of course, as well, and working with somebody like Amber. They got her on their side. We're going to shift gears now, and I've got a handful of case studies that I want to go through. The first one I want to talk about is a guy who's 69. He's got diabetes. It's under control with medication, but he was turned down for traditional long-term care insurance. 10 years ago, we had 110 traditional long-term care insurance companies in business. We are down to less than 5. So when we continue our conversation, just make sure you realize that we are not talking about traditional long-term care insurance, but much easier strategies for the client to secure even when they have health problems. Like, this guy's got diabetes and it's under control, but he was turned down 10 years ago. He may be the kind of person that comes into your office thinking he doesn't qualify. So you ask him those 3 questions. In this case, Bob said, I'd want to stay at home, and I would want to use that original annuity that I put $200,000 in way back. If I got sick, that's what I would use. Well, you'll learn that it's grown from 200 to 400,000, and that would not be unusual over a 10-year period if it was in a variable annuity or a really good growth annuity to have that happen. That's a pretty common thing. Here's the issue, though. He's going to pay, if he does that, he's going to pay income taxes, right? Remember, under the IRS code, we have something called LIFO, last in, first out. So he's got $400,000 in this annuity. He withdraws money to pay for care, and the first 200 is taxable as ordinary income. Now, I know some of you will make the case, well, he could write off the care cost as non-reimbursed medical, but he's still subject to 7.5 of the adjusted gross income. So the better way to do this type of case would be to enlist Amber's team and to say, there might be a better way, Bob. Why don't we take the existing annuity that you have, and let's use the IRS Rule 1035, and let's exchange it into an annuity with a Pension Protection Act qualification, where your annuity still only worth $400,000 if you die or you want to withdraw it to go on a vacation. But if you get sick, it's leveraged to $1,600,000. Now, you'd have the ability, Bob, to get $16,000 a month out for the next 8 years. Can you imagine the impact that you're going to have on families if you're able to share that with them? And oh, by the way, when you see the next couple illustrations down, we're going to suggest that clients, where possible, own these inside of an irrevocable trust because of the additional level of protection that you can provide them and certainty about what's going to happen, the ability to pay caregivers out of what we're going to call the caregiver's trust, okay? So this policy is set up to pay home care, assisted skilled care. These policies can be written where they're cash benefit, which means you can pay anybody. So they're not limited to home care agencies, assisted living, or nursing homes. They could hire a friend or a family member, even children or spouses, okay? So that's the Pension Protection Act. Again, the illustration from that carrier is there. But because we have a limited amount of time, and this is great stuff, we want to cover uninsurable. You got an email from Amber that talked about guarantee issue, and you thought, okay, what in the world is she talking about? Here's what she's talking about. I'm going to give you 3 case studies. The first one is somebody who's really, really obese. The second one's Parkinson's, and the third one is dementia. The way we do this is we have a carrier where we use a 30-minute video underwriting interview and decision. So imagine you have a client who's drastically overweight. They're 350 pounds, like this client I'm going to share with you in just a minute. And they come in because they got a big inheritance, and you're doing all of their estate planning work for them, and they bring up the topic of long-term care. You would now know that you could bring Amber onto a video call. She could bring the underwriter on, and in 30 minutes, you could have a decision, an underwriting decision, with no money out of the client's pocket to find out if they're eligible. Now, we know it's guaranteed issue. Here's what we're trying to determine in each case. Are we going to get a leverage of 3-to-1, 2-to-1, or is the leverage going to be an increase of 37%? And we won't know that until we go through this interview. So when the client goes through the interview, Amber will get an immediate decision right there. And this is the direction that insurance products are going. I told Amber, the Amazon Sheila effect. The Amazon, everybody knows what I mean. You order something this morning, it's on your porch this afternoon. My wife called me, I don't know, this is 2 years ago, and she said, Don, we've got new bath towels on the way. Didn't know we needed new bath towels, but we got them on the way. 2 hours later, I come home to grab a sandwich, and I trip over a box on the front porch. Guess what they were? Bath towels, okay? So that's the Sheila effect. The Amazon Sheila effect is people want things now. It doesn't change the fact that they want their legal stuff now, and they want decisions, answers now, okay? So if there was one, thing that came out of COVID that's positive, it would be that insurance companies are recognizing the Amazon effect, and we now have carriers that can help us. When we structure these plans on guaranteed issue, they are all cash indemnity, which means the family's going to get cash to pay for whatever care, including family members, children, spouses, to provide that care. Here's the first case study I want to give you. This person came into your office. They were never married. They just got a big chunk from Aunt Betty, and they said, look, if I get sick, I want to stay at home. But this lady, of course, is not going to buy insurance anywhere because of her height and weight. 354 pounds at 5'5". Let me tell you, you cannot buy life insurance or long-term care insurance until guarantee issue. This is somebody you want to work with as the attorney on this case. Obviously, she's got enough money she can pay your fees. And she tells you, look, if I got sick, I'd have to dig into some of the money from my Aunt Betty's inheritance. So you say, look, let me introduce you to Amber. And what Amber learns is that if instead of just paying dollar for dollar, she were to transfer the $320,000 into a pension protection act account, and there's a little bit of time that we get to vest something called well-being credits, we could have a tax-free benefit immediately. By the way, you put in 320, she's uninsurable everywhere else, put in 320, she's got 469. How about if we wait 3 years? That pool for long-term care has grown to over $1 million and $18,000 a month. And at age 78, which is closer to the age she'll likely need it, we've taken $320,000 and we've increased it to $1,260,000. It's tax-free, and you got $21,000 a month that can come out. Your head's probably spinning now, and you're probably thinking, boy, could we own that, Don, inside of an irrevocable trust? The answer is yes. And the carrier understands why that's important. You understand why it's important. And the ability to get the cash stacking up inside of a trust is unbelievable. It's really, really exciting. All right, second case. This person has Parkinson's, recently diagnosed. We took her through the interview, and here's what the insurance company came back with. They said, look, you put in $470,000, and you'll have on day one 710,000, $1,000,001, and again at 78, 1.2 million. So what you're seeing here is that by putting a little bit more money in, even when the risk is impaired, this carrier recognizes mathematically how to make that happen. And then the last one, I think you're going to all love. This is somebody who got divorced 10 years earlier at age 60. She got a significant divorce settlement. She's currently receiving care. Her younger daughter, who's a doctor, comes into your office. You'd love to have the doctor as an estate planning client as well, but you learn that her sister, who she's there on behalf of, has front temporal lobe dementia, and she's really concerned that the daughter's going, or her sister's going to go through all the money. She explained to her that there might be an angle, and that the angle might be to establish a Pension Protection Act annuity. So we put 720,000 into one of those. We're able to, again, still get leverage of 37% increase. And as time goes, that grows. And, you know, the family's happy with this. But then you recognize that if we structured it right, that the outcome could be, you know, 1 + 1 is normally 2 under normal mathematics. But if you take a properly drafted Pension Protection Act account and a properly drafted irrevocable trust as the ownership entity, and you put them together, 1 + 1, working with Ashbur's not 2, but 1 + 1 is like 5 in terms of the outcome. Let me share with you what I mean. So in this case, what we actually did was we worked on with Amber and the attorney, and we said, now wait a second, the lady's got 360,000 of IRA that her beneficiary is going to inherit, and they're going to pay income tax on it. So let's do this. Let's establish the Pension Protection Act annuity, but let's use the IRA first. So we structured, using an annuity with Amber, a 36-month SPIA to make monthly payments and pay the care cost. The 720,000, guess what? Went into a caregiver's trust that was immediately growing, and at the 3-year mark now had a value of $1,104,000 that was tax-free. So what we had the trustee do is make a distribution to the beneficiary of the trust who was a high earner. That beneficiary then became responsible for mom's care costs, creating significant tax deduction for the care. So I suspect that most of you got this. You're going, Don, this is brilliant. Some of you may say, wait a second, how's this actually going to work? If you want to learn more about the ownership structure and what we've already done in real life cases, just put a little note in the chat box. Amber, let's get with Don, trust structure, ownership, something like that, and we'll make sure we get you the information you need. The opportunity to help families, even when Medicaid or impoverishment planning is not an option, it just went through the roof. And the reason it went through the roof is because these carriers now recognize that the cash benefit is the only way they're going to be able to sell their policies, because there's not enough caregivers. And the fact that it's cash benefit owned inside of a trust creates tons of flexibility. Too much to go into today, but enough so that the term caregiver trust and caregivertrust.com is going through a trademark sales mark process with the United States Trademark Sales Mark Office from a law firm I know, and they're going to make that structure and all that available to anybody who wants it. Okay, what's this market opportunity? And we're going to finish up, Amber, with this 17 trillion in IRA. So what happens when they walk into your office and they've got their IRA rich and cash poor? Here's what you can do, and I'll go fast because we're going to run out of time otherwise. You've got a couple in their 70s. They're frightened about the idea of going into long-term nursing home, and they want to use their IRA. So they've got a ton of IRA, 3 million, and they don't have a lot of other assets. So here's what you recommend they do. You have them visit with Amber, and then Amber establishes a custodial IRA account with an insurance company. The money gets transferred into the new IRA, so that's a tax-free trustee-to-trustee transfer. The insurance company adds a bonus, and now the client has $375,000 in their IRA, what's called income account value. One time a year, that insurance company withdraws $37,500 and funds unlimited long-term care. When they do that, of course, the client's going to have a tax liability on the $37,500, but they're only 7 years away from RMD requirements anyway. And so we're just getting a head start on it while taxes are lower, not higher. What does the client get? They get a $100,000 annual benefit, tax-free benefit. So if Tim, whose IRA it was, gets sick and needs home care, guess what? He's got 100 grand coming in. If Patty gets sick and needs assisted living, another 100,000. Guess what? If they both had caregivers coming in the home at the same time, they got 200 grand. Now, I know one of the questions is probably going to be, wait a second, Don, can we own the second contract, the joint long-term care contract inside of an irrevocable trust? And the answer is absolutely yes, and it should for sure be structured that way. The IRA piece can be, of course, needs to be kept in Tim's name so that we don't create a taxable event on $375,000. But the second contract can be trust owned. And again, creating a lot of extra benefits for your client. These contracts, because this is lifetime benefit, provide a cash benefit, or what we call indemnity, for the first 2 years. So I'm going to finish up before I turn it back over to Amber with one last case. It's not unusual. We see these cases at least once a week. We're supporting almost 100,000 financial advisors across the country. They almost always, if they're smart, are working with folks like you all, elder law attorneys. $2 million case comes through. The guy's 84. He says, hey, look, you know, thank God you helped me with my wife's scenario. You did some, you know, planning for him regarding dementia. The wife recently died, but only after spending 7 years in assisted living memory care division. And he's got a Cadillac long-term care insurance, but he's concerned about his daughters. So one of the things is his trusted advisor law firm you could begin doing is to begin discussing the rules of the Secure Act 2.0 as it pertains to inherited IRAs, and explain to him that, look, your girls are going to get hammered. They're going to have to take all this money out over a 10-year period. And because you're concerned about long-term care, we might be able to kill two birds with one stone. So what you recommend he do is that establishes an IRA plan, in this case with One America, in his own name. He's the owner, but he lists the daughter, Jane, who's 50, and son, 51, as the insureds. And what happens is this couple, since they're in their 50s, they do a simple online application with Amber and they're immediately approved. Dad transfers $200,000 into his new IRA with One America. And what does the kids get? They get lifetime unlimited long-term care. They each got $150,000 a year of benefits. These are 7702B. These are the right kind of definition. And guess what you just did? For this tranche of IRA, that $200,000 automatically now complies with the Secure Act 2.0. Too many reasons to go into, but I can tell you that we have complied with Secure Act 2.0 by this structure. You see, sometimes where there's a will, there's a way. And helping clients like this, we've got law firms now that are picking up second generation legal work because they're doing what the advisor should have done, which is educate the client about unique processes like this. We rinse and repeat for the second daughter, whose name is Jill and John. Same thing, just different names. Okay. I know I have covered a lot, Amber, and as I promised, we would be going through a ton. We can, for anybody who wants additional training, just put additional training. Let's get Don back on here. We want to talk more individually, whatever. I'm here to help Amber. Amber's our client. Her firm is our client, and I'm basically on Amber's payroll. So if we can help, you let us know. So let's finish up with, how do you find these people? If you use the survey that Amber at Ashburn can provide you, what you'll find is that for free, you can email your clients a simple survey. And the simple survey looks like this. Her team will create it, they'll embed it into the email and get the email to you. It's your client list, you have to deploy the email. But the very first question says, do you have a spouse, parent, or loved one who's currently receiving care? You will create pre-planning cases like they are going out of style. As a matter of fact, the second question on the survey says, if you got sick and needed care, where would you want it? What asset would you liquidate first? And would you like free information about government incentives? We saw one law firm fill a calendar. I mean, literally fill a calendar for themselves and 2 associate attorneys by this darn simple survey. Sometimes it's the simplest things that nobody's thinking about that work. Okay, so if you want the survey, type in survey in the chat box. When the client fills the survey out, the email will come back directly to you or your booking person in your office, and you'll schedule appointments. Okay, it's that simple. Now, we have a few law firms that and advisors that chose to mail the survey out, and they were getting response rates of upwards of 30%. I did this presentation about 6 months ago, and the guy said, Don, there's no way. You're pulling my leg. So I had each of these guys do me a favor and actually send me a picture of those leads. And so here they are. This is my friend Scott. He works closely with a law firm in Newark, New Jersey. They sent out 800. They got 269 back for a response rate of 33%. There's 250 mailed out in 82. The point is that, yes, you are law offices, but you have to be good at marketing, right? And we can help you with that. We have responses. I've written several books, like Amber said. This one we want to make available to you, and it's only because you're with Ashburn. If you want this book and you want to co-brand it for free, we'll co-brand the back of the book, your picture, your information, your bio, your contact, all of that. It would normally cost $397, but if you say, I want the book, put that in the chat. When Amber reaches out to you, she'll make that available to you free of charge. It's a great calling card. It's a great piece to have. And all of the information I covered today is found inside of the book. When you work with Amber's office, you'll get in a habit of asking these clients these questions, right? And when you do that, and they say they want to learn more, you'd simply refer them to Amber, and she'll use a tool that looks something like this. And she'll ask some real non-invasive questions. It will take about 10 minutes. And then what will happen is that fact pattern will get sent again to Ashburn. And then Amber's office has an A-class team. There's pictures of them all. You've met them, I know, but for those of you who are new to Ashburn and Amber, she's got an amazing team. So that team would then take that information and they would go through the due diligence so that your client or the client of the advisor who's bringing the case to the table would know that there's 2,000 insurance companies, but not all of them are great, right? There's 3 finalists that Amber would bring to the table. Big, strong, safe insurance companies like those. And then a real simple side-by-side comparison of the best 3. I mean, there isn't anybody who doesn't want the due diligence that Ashburn does on behalf of their attorneys and their clients. Second appointment, and then Amber would submit an e-app. The client doesn't put any money in until they're approved or transfer or do anything like that. So Ashburn's the partnership, and Amber, I know we only have a little bit of time now for Q&A, but I'll let you pick up from here. Tell the law firms and advisors on this call what they need to do to work with you and get the great resources that we covered today.
Yeah, thank you, Don. It does look like a lot of people have already chatted or placed requests in the chat, so that's great. I'll reach out to people individually to get the requested information to them. So that's great. And if anybody has any questions or wants to move forward with anything that Don has talked about, you can reach out to me at amber@ashbur.com. It's a pretty simple email address, or call me. That's actually my cell phone number on the screen here. Otherwise, you can call 888-441-1595 for our office line as well. And I'm not seeing, let me just double check while I have you, Don. I'm not seeing specific questions related to any of the solutions that you talked about or the trust structure. I'm more or less seeing requests for either the surveys or the slides. So like I said, I'll just reach out to people individually for that type of solution. So yeah, I don't have any specific questions that I'm seeing here as I'm browsing through the requests, but this was all great information, Don. I appreciate your time, and
Sure.
we will be in touch as I need these resources from you.
Thank you much.
Thank you, everybody.